the super 5 finger discount.
The outlet, dude. Everything's always 50% off, and then Under Armour gives teachers like another 5%.
Which leads you to believe how much that piece of clothing really cost. Like, how much are you paying to the licensing and usage rights and copyright and all that royalties?
Measure it in drops of sweat.
And then how much, well, yeah, maybe. How much is actually going to the corporation? How much profit are they actually pocketing? We're going to be in Psalm 139. And hopefully the entire world is watching us so that I can make a splash tonight. Not trying to make a splash, but I am going to be talking about something that's been very controversial in the last 24 hours, maybe 36 hours. No, actually, so 48 hours, right? So he took office like over 2 days ago. And he signed his first slew of executive orders in the evening time, the real ones, right? Was it? Yeah. So, one of them, as Native Americans, we can celebrate, sort of. He commuted a sentence of a long time victim of his own doing, right? Leonard Peltier gets to live out his rest of his sentence at home. There's some controversy about that, but he's accused or was convicted of killing 2 FBI agents. And I know people are kind of divided on that issue, but the AIM people have been lobbying that release for decades now, and they got to see that. And there's going to be some ceremonies and some things going on back where all that took place, and so it's going to be kind of neat again as Indian people to see that go on. That wasn't Trump's doing; that was Biden's doing. But what Trump also came in one of his executive orders that was relevant not only to us natives but also to us Christians is that he made an executive order that the federal government is only going to recognize 2 genders, the only 2 genders that we should be concerned with as humans, anyways. And that's a big I know it's going to create a lot of controversy, but that's a big statement because some of the stuff that our newly elected president was running on was we need to return as a country back to our roots, and not just the Constitution, but the Constitution actually was founded on a lot of Christian ideas. It was at its foundation has God, the recognition of God, and how we should be treating people in the way God wants us to treat people. So Psalm 139 goes a little bit further in depth about how much we should recognize God in everything we do. It starts out, it says, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways." That's a pretty significant, right? I mean, God knows everything. And what David is recognizing here is there's nothing that goes on without his knowledge. He continues and he says, before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. This harkens back to what the prophet said, that he knew, even in Genesis, that he knew everything when he created the world. He knew everything, how it was going to turn out. He knew what he was going to do before he even did it. He knows what we are going to do before we even do it, right? And I liked how you can kind of tell there's a change in the new leader, the president of the United States. Yeah, he was real. I don't know what you call it, cowboy. he was radical in his first term, but this new term, you can kind of tell his brush with death it affects him when he talks about that particular moment, that he has to recognize that something else was at work. And that's what the psalmist here is saying too. You hem me in behind and before. You are you are in control of everything. And you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. One of the things that he recognized in his inauguration speech, and I think he went into a little bit more detail. If you guys didn't watch it, they said his impromptu inauguration speech at the hall, the overflow hall, was a little bit better than the one he had prepared and written. But the one he wrote and or had written for him, the one he spoke during his inauguration was good, in that it recognized that there was something greater ahead of him. And that's what we all should do, even as leaders in our own respect. We should all recognize that there's something greater ahead of us that we're trying to obtain, we're trying to attain, or we're trying to seek. But we might not understand that he gave it up in talking about that. And he's talked about that before. He recognizes that he don't know what it is, but he knows that he's been called to serve and do the best that he can and strive for it. And, that's all you can ask of as a follower, somebody that's sitting in the back. I'm never going to really get into United States government and politics and all that. But as a citizen, I want to see that out of a leader. I want to see them trying to strive towards something greater. I always get fired up when they're doing their speeches, because most of the time they're positive, but some of the time their State of the Union addresses, they're just talking about the bills and the laws that they're trying to pass and the back and forth and all that. I don't want to see any of that. I want to see us what our president-elect has been saying or our president has been saying to try to get elected. And even when he was president the first time, that we want to be the greatest nation on earth. That's what we're striving to do. And I could get behind that because it flows down, right? I want to be the best state. It's hard hearing, to me, it's hard hearing how low we are in the education rankings amongst all the other states. It's because I don't like that. But what are we doing about it? Us citizens, what are we doing about it? Our leaders, what are we doing about it, right? Not doing a whole lot. And that's the frustrating part, because there's not a whole lot to get behind, right? There's not a whole lot to look forward to, right? Our tribal nations, we're probably at the top. I don't know that Oklahoma it was the center of growth for economic development because of the casinos there for like a decade or two. I don't know that it's at the top now, but Indian country as a whole, if you guys don't know this already, it's already taken over. The tribal gaming industry is the largest gambling industry in America right now. It topped commercial gaming. It topped Nevada gaming a long time ago. In its early days, it was already better than Atlantic City, these big gaming meccas that you hear about. And I don't know that it would be ever top in the world, because there's kind of like a monopoly where the biggest one is over there in I can't remember
I said Singapore. I don't know.
yeah, it's over there in that area. What's it? It's the Chinese province that's
I said a really rich city. That's all.
I think it starts with an M. Anyways, it has a lot going for them, and it's still growing. It's going crazy out of control. In fact, the largest casino hotel is actually there. The largest casino is in Oklahoma. I don't know if you guys didn't know that. But the largest resort area is actually over there. I can't remember what the name of it is now. My casino friends are going to call me out. But going further right here, not only does he know what's going on, there isn't really a good way to escape him. And I know that there's a lot of people that try to do that, right? And they use excuses. They use excuses that, well, this is how this should be, or this is how this was brought up, this is how this is taught, or they use that liberty and that progressive mindset is, well, this is old fashioned, this is outdated, this is ancient, right? We need to think of a new way to do some of this stuff. Picking up in verse 7, it says, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for the darkness is as light for darkness is as light to you. Right? So there's no boundary for him. There's no, if we are thinking that we can get out from underneath his control, right? It's not possible because there are no bounds to him. There's no requirement. There's requirements on us. We live in this physical world that there are limitations to what we can do. I think I asked you guys one time, a long time ago, I said, can you get faster? Can you run faster? Can you train to run faster? And I got some, what? I was like, I'm serious. Like, what is a person limited to one speed, or if they train, can they get better, right? Now you can become a better runner, be more efficient, run longer and all that, but can you really run faster? And I've seen a lot of training videos since then. Not me. I'm not training or anything, but on TikTok and all this other social media stuff, you see these crazy little, look like dyno machines for humans, little treadmills that they run, and that's how they train to get faster. And they latch them up to a little harness deal to try to hold them back so that their muscles are working harder, and then they have to lift weights and all that for explosiveness. But you can get faster, but there's a limit. There's a limit to our ability, and it becomes, I like the conversation that was going on earlier. It's bone structure, it's height, it's how heavy you are, all that type of stuff. There's limits, but there's no limit to God. And once we recognize that, we can then start maybe hopefully obey him, but recognize that we're not going to ever escape him no matter what. And so when we're talking about that salvation experience later on in Romans in the New Testament, right? The Psalms is in the Old Testament, but in Romans it talks about how we cannot be separated, right? I think it's chapter 8 in the middle part of the verses there. It says we can't be separate. What can separate us from the love of God? It's a question, and tries to answer nothing. Nothing can separate us. Now, that love may not look like love like we would want all the time. That love may be discipline, may be punishment, may be a consequence for our actions, but we're never going to escape that. He created us for a purpose. He created us and put us in this world for a reason. And that leads into the next part. But what is really, really needed, and what I really like what his executive order has done, right? The laws are getting a little bit outside the boundaries. We need to rein them back in to get back to our principles and our foundation as a nation, because we were built on respecting and loving God, using his rule of law instead of humans, and humans are trying to insert themselves right there. And what this goes further into, right? I know we had a big controversial court case about Roe v. Wade being overturned and all that, but this goes into that portion as well of life. And it says, "For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained me for or all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. See, everything was planned out. I think it was Jeremiah that said it, that he knew what we were going to do before we even came out of the womb, before we were even placed there, right? Everything is part of a plan, right? So not only is he all seeing, all powerful, and knows everything, and we're not going to be able to escape it. He has a plan for us. He has a plan for each and every one of us. He has a plan for our church. He has a plan for our community, right? And I got to say, when I was going to go out, when I was riding around here, man, our community probably needs a little bit more infrastructure built in its place. I seen so many people walking on the road. Cushing, you got too many people walking on the road. It's crazy. But there's a structure. There's a structure to everything that we are seeking, right? And if we want things to be taken care of, we have to take part in that. He's got a plan for us, and we have to acknowledge that and follow that plan. We have to provide that service that we were called to. It says, were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you. It skipped the part. He says, how precious to me are your thoughts. Are your thoughts, God? How vast is the sum of them? Talking about that plan and what he has in store for us. And it's not just for us. It's for everybody. All those thoughts are being put into motion. And that's what he was recognizing, is that how grand this plan is, that it involves everybody. And we have to recognize that. Too often do we let our own human ideas divide us when we're called to do something bigger. We're called to take part. Now, we might not like everything that's presented to us. New plans are kind of they're new, and we're scared of new because it's unknown, right? We might not know all the details, and trying to figure those out, we might come to some confusion. We might try to substitute ideas that were not fully vetted out or whatever. But that's what we're called to do, is work together, not work against each other. And we have to recognize that God put us in these places and put us in these positions to be able to do that, to be able to come together instead of dividing and separating and doing all the stuff that isn't helpful, right? It's funny that, am I going to say this vaguely, but I see all the Facebook stuff, okay? It's crazy because, what was it? One of the things that they got rid of was, like, before the election was like, or before the inauguration, it was like the social media stuff was taking down some of their filters, I guess you could call them. And there's this big thing, what was it, fact checking or something like that. There was a whole department that was dedicated to, like, putting their own 2 cents on the way content was being portrayed. That's not there anymore. And so you have the other side being able to take full advantage of that by putting out there, like, false stuff, right? But it's funny because now the ones who were supporting the fact checking are buying into the false narratives because it fits what they want to talk about. It's wild. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be coming together, right? These are just platforms. These are just communication devices to be able to help, to be able to connect, to be able to do all that. And it's funny because to me it's peculiar. It's not really funny. It's peculiar because how quick we can devolve into chaos, into negativity, for lack of a better term, negativity. And that's honestly why I don't, you might see me put up something random on Facebook every now and then, but to take part in those discussions, it would bring me down. It would bring my attitude down, because then you're trying to battle somebody who doesn't want to change their mind, who might not have a good opinion of you anyways, But what's the point? You're wasting energy. Energy you could put into studying your Bible, figuring out what you're supposed to be doing for God, maybe helping out other people, right? And it's just wild because the ones who were against all of that are now all for that, and yet aren't looking at what is to come that could be greater. That's not saying Biden and his administration, it was a complete, what was it, dumpster fire? Is that the cool term these days? But it wasn't as exciting as it is when we're looking to refresh and renew our strength in God. Does that make sense? Is that cool with everybody? I that's what I enjoy about this whole deal. And to be able to recognize that God's hand is in this, no matter what it is. He brought us through these last 4 years. He brought us through all that chaos in the foreign areas, right? It's still going on. There's not a lot of news about it because there's a new president, but that stuff's still going on. That stuff is still hurting our world. So it's not going to disappear overnight. We need to recognize God and we need to follow Him. And I like that promise that we have with this new administration, with everything that's going on. Hey, we can refocus on our faith, and that's something I really like, really enjoy right now. The rest of that psalm is good, but we're gonna go ahead and end it there. Any questions? Any comments? All right. So for you online, we're going to go ahead and go to a time of prayer. If you have prayer requests, go ahead and send those in, comment those, or just send us, DMs, private messages, text us if you have our text or if you have our numbers, and we'll add those to our prayer list. But we'll be back here. You can listen to us on the radio, 1600 AM KUSH, Saturday mornings at 11. And then we'll be back here for Sunday school at 10 and our main worship service at 11. So until next time, we'll see you later.